The rain that afternoon was cold enough to freeze the marrow in your bones, but it was not nearly as cold as the reception waiting for me inside my own home. I stood on the front porch, my hand trembling as I reached for the doorknob. Water dripping from the brim of my black hat onto the shoulders of a coat I had owned for 20 years. My husband, the man I had shared a bed with for nearly 3 decades, sat inside, but he was not grieving the mother we had just buried. He was waiting to bury me. Before I go any further, let me say something honest. If this opening hit you in any way, subscribe to Voices of Emily, so you stay here with me for the rest of this story. I am putting a part of myself into these words, and I want you to walk through it with me. And when you can leave a comment telling me what this moment reminded you of, your voice matters here. Then tap the like button so this story reaches someone who might need it more than we know. I turned the key in the lock, the sound of the metal tumbling engaging with a harsh click that seemed to echo too loudly in the silence of the street. My shoes were muddy from the cemetery, clotted with the wet earth of the plot where we had just lowered Margaret into the ground. And I remember thinking that I should take them off before I stepped onto the hardwood floors. That was the instinct of a caregiver, you see, the reflex of a woman who had spent 10 years making sure that nothing dirtied the sanctuary of the invalid, that no chaos from the outside world breached the sterile, quiet peace of the sick room. I pushed the door open and stepped into the foyer, the warmth of the central heating hitting my damp face. But there was no warmth in the atmosphere, only a thick, suffocating tension that smelled of old lilies and expensive cologne. They were all there, arranged in the living room like actors on a stage waiting for the curtain to rise on a tragedy. Jamal, my husband, was sitting in the wingback chair by the fireplace, the very chair that Aisha had claimed as her throne for 30 years, the one she had sat in to do her needlepoint until her hands grew too stiff to hold the needle. He looked unnatural there, his legs crossed, his face set in a mask of impatience rather than sorrow. And he did not stand up when his wife of 23 years walked in from the rain. My son Darius was sitting on the sofa, his elbows on his knees, his head hanging low so that his hair curtained his eyes, and he could not, or would not, look at me. Beside him sat Keisha, my sister-in-law, a woman who treated family visits like dental appointments, painful necessities to be endured once a year and forgotten immediately after. She was wearing sunglasses indoors, dark oversized lenses that hid her eyes, and she held a manila folder in her lap with a grip that turned her manicured knuckles white. And there was a stranger, a man in a gray suit who sat in the corner, clutching a briefcase as if he expected someone to try and snatch it from him. "Tamara," Jamal said, and his voice was dry, devoid of the moisture of tears or the rasp of grief. He did not ask if I was all right, did not ask if I needed a towel or a glass of water, did not ask how I had managed to drive home alone through the storm while he rode in the limousine with his sister. "We need to discuss the future," he continued, gesturing vaguely to the empty ottoman in the center of the room, a low seat that would force me to look up at all of them. "Can I at least take off my coat?" I asked, my voice sounding thin and reedy to my own ears, like a ghost speaking through a crack in the wall. "This will not take long," Keisha said, her voice sharp and metallic, the way she always spoke to waitstaff and service workers. I looked at her, really looked at her, and I remembered the last time she had visited Aisha, 3 years ago, when she had complained that the smell of disinfectant in the house was ruining her appetite for lunch. I slowly unbuttoned my coat, my fingers stiff and clumsy, and hung it on the rack, taking my time, refusing to let their urgency dictate my movements. I sat on the ottoman, my knees pressing together, my hands folded in my lap, feeling the dampness of my skirt seeping through the fabric. "I found Mom's will," Tasha announced, opening the folder with a snap that sounded like a pistol shot in the quiet room. It was in her vanity drawer, tucked under her sleeping pills. I felt a pulse jump in my throat, a sudden erratic rhythm that had nothing to do with the exertion of the day, and everything to do with the sudden realization that I was in a room full of wolves. Loretta and I discussed her wishes, I said quietly, looking at Jamal, trying to find the man I had married inside the stranger sitting in his mother's chair. She told me what she wanted. Mom was on a lot of medication, Aisha, Jamal said, cutting me off with a wave of his hand. A dismissive gesture that erased 10 years of my life. She was confused. She did not know what day it was half the time. She knew exactly who was cleaning her. I said, my voice rising slightly. She knew who was feeding her, who was turning her every 2 hours so she would not get bed sores, who was holding her hand when the morphine stopped working. The lawyer cleared his throat, a dry, dusty sound. Mrs. Washington, he said, avoiding my eyes, looking instead at a point on the wall just above my head. I am Derek Simmons. I have been retained by Mr. Washington and Ms. Washington to execute the estate according to this document. He gestured to the paper in Tasha's hand. According to the will found in the decedent's possession, the entirety of the estate, including this property, the savings accounts and all personal effects, is to be divided equally between her natural-born children, Jamal and Tasha. The room seemed to tilt on its axis, the walls stretching and warping as if I were looking at them through the bottom of a glass. And for Aisha? Tasha asked, her voice dripping with a faux sweetness that was more insulting than a slap. She ran a finger down the page. Here it is. To my daughter-in-law Aisha, for her assistance during my final years, I leave the sum of $5,000. $5,000. For 10 years. For 3,650 days of labor. For the nights I slept on a cot beside her bed, because she was afraid of the dark. For the ruin of my own back, the arthritis in my hands, the career in nursing I had abandoned because Jamal had told me that family takes care of family. For the friends I had lost because I could never go out, the vacations we never took, the silence that had grown between my husband and me because he could not bear to see his mother decline, so he stayed late at work while I stayed home and watched her fade. That is not possible, I whispered. Loretta told me. She said the house. The house is Jamal's, Tasha snapped, closing the folder. And mine. We have already decided to sell it. The market is good, and frankly this place is depressing. I looked at Malik, my son, my baby. He was 24 years old, a grown man. Yet he sat there shrinking into himself, picking at a loose thread on his trousers. Malik, I said, pleading with him to look at me, to validate me, to say something, anything. Dad says this is what Grandma wanted, he mumbled, his voice thick with misery, but he did not look up. Dad says it is fair. Fair. I laughed, a broken, jagged sound that hurt my chest. Your father did not visit her for 6 months before she died. Where was he when she was screaming in pain? Where was he when she forgot how to swallow? Where was he when she cried because she did not recognize her own face in the mirror? Jamal stood up then abruptly, his face flushing a dark, ugly red. That is enough, Aisha. You will not disrespect me in front of my son and my sister. This is my mother's will. It is legal. It is final. The lawyer shifted in his seat. Mrs. Washington, I have been instructed to inform you that you have 48 hours to vacate the premises. Vacate. I repeated the word as if it were in a foreign language. This is my home. I have lived here for 20 years. It was Loretta's home, Jamal said coldly. And now it is ours. You have $5,000. That is more than enough to get a motel until you figure something out. And Malik? I asked, looking at the boy I had raised, the boy I had protected from his father's indifference for so long. Malik stays with us, Jamal said. We are a family. You are the one who needs to leave. The cruelty of it took my breath away. It was not just about the money or the house. It was the erasure. They were rewriting history, editing me out of the family portrait, reducing me to a hired hand who had outlived her usefulness. I stood up. My legs felt like water, trembling under the weight of my own body, but I locked my knees and forced myself to stand tall. I looked at Jamal, really looked at him, and saw the weakness around his mouth, the shifting of his eyes. He was afraid. He was bullying me because he was terrified of what he had done. Terrified of the guilt that was gnawing at the edges of his conscience. I understand, I said. My voice was calm, shockingly calm. They had expected a scene. They had expected me to scream, to cry, to beg, to throw things. I will go pack, I said. I turned my back on them, on the husband who had betrayed me. They wanted me to be the crazy woman so they could feel justified in casting me out. But I had learned something from 10 years of nursing the dying. You cannot fight the storm while you are standing in it. You have to find shelter, wait for the winds to die down, and then you assess the damage. I will go pack, I said. I turned my back on them, on the husband who had betrayed me, on the sister-in-law who despised me, on the son who was too weak to defend me. I walked up the stairs, the same stairs I had run up and down 1,000 times to fetch water, to fetch medicine, to answer a cry in the night. I went into the bedroom I had shared with Jamal, the room where our marriage had slowly suffocated under the weight of his neglect. I pulled my suitcase from the closet, the old leather one that Loretta had given me years ago for a trip we never took. I packed my clothes. I packed my nursing scrubs, folded neatly in the back of the drawer, unworn for a decade. I packed the photo albums Jamal had left in a pile to be thrown away, because everything is digital now. And then I reached under the mattress of my side of the bed, and I pulled out the envelope. Loretta had given it to me 3 days before she died. It was one of her clear moments, a rare window of lucidity where the fog of dementia and morphine parted, and the sharp, intelligent woman she used to be looked out from behind her clouded eyes. She had gripped my wrist with a strength that surprised me, her fingers digging into my skin. "Aisha," she had whispered, her voice like dry leaves skittering on pavement. "They are not good people. I see that now. I am sorry I did not see it sooner." "Don't say that." I had soothed her, smoothing the white hair back from her forehead. "They are just busy." "Do not defend them," she had hissed. "You always defend everyone but yourself. It is time someone protected you." She had pulled the envelope from beneath her pillow, warm from her body heat. "Do not open this until after I am gone. Promise me. And do not let them see it. Hide it." I had promised. And now, holding it in my hands, feeling the thickness of the paper, I felt a strange vibration, a hum of energy. I did not open it. Not yet. I tucked it deep into the lining of my suitcase, beneath my winter sweaters. I walked out of that house an hour later. I did not say goodbye. I did not look back. I got into my 10-year-old sedan, the one with the rusting wheel well, and I drove away from the only life I had known for 2 decades. I checked into the Super Tom motel on the edge of town, a place where the neon sign buzzed with an angry insect sound, and the room smelled of stale cigarette smoke and industrial bleach. It was a far cry from the polished hardwood floors and the scent of lavender in Loretta's house. But as I locked the flimsy door behind me, I felt a sudden, crushing weight lift off my shoulders. I was alone. I was homeless. I had $5,000 to my name. But for the first time in 10 years, I did not have to listen for the baby monitor. I did not have to worry about Jamal's dinner. I did not have to apologize for existing. Let me pause for just a second. This part of the story is where things start to get heavier, and I want you to stay with me for it. If you have not subscribed yet, do it now. It keeps you close while I take you through the rest of this. And if something in this stirred a memory in you, tell me in the comments. After that, press like so this story does not disappear into the feed. I spent 2 days in that motel room, just existing. I slept for 12 hours at a stretch, a deep, dreamless sleep that I had been denied for years. That I ate sandwiches from the vending machine. I stared at the ceiling and let the grief wash over me. Not grief for the house, or for Jamal, but grief for Loretta, the woman who had become my mother in every way that mattered. On the third day, with the morning sun cutting through the thin curtains and illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air, I sat on the edge of the bed and opened the envelope. Inside there was a heavy brass key with a tag that read First National Bank, Box 404, and a handwritten note. Loretta's handwriting was shaky, the letters spiderwebbing across the page, but the message was clear. Aisha, I know my children. I prepared for this. Trust me. The real will is in the box. Video recording too. Call Harold Jenkins. His number is below. Fight for yourself, Aisha. For once fight. I stared at the note until the words blurred. She knew. She had sat in her wheelchair, unable to speak clearly some days, unable to feed herself, but she had been watching. She had seen Jamal's impatience, his reluctance to touch her. She had seen Tasha's infrequent visits, her eyes always scanning the room to see what antique she could claim. And she had seen me. She had seen the exhaustion in my face, the way I rubbed my lower back when I thought she was asleep. She had seen the love I poured into her care, not because I expected a reward, but because it was the right thing to do. I showered, dressed in my best black suit, the one I had worn to the funeral, and I drove downtown. Harold Jenkins' office was located in an old brick building that smelled of coffee and old paper. He was a man of about 70, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and a handshake that felt like gripping a warm stone. Mrs. Washington, he said, rising from his desk as I entered. I have been expecting you. You have. Loretta called me 8 months ago, he said, gesturing for me to sit. She had a moment of remarkable clarity. She asked me to come to the house when Jamal was at work. She was very specific about what she wanted to do. He took the key from my trembling hand and led me to a conference room. On the table sat a metal lockbox. He inserted the key, turned it with a satisfying click, and opened the lid. Inside lay a thick document bound in blue paper, a USB drive, and another sealed letter addressed to me. This, Harold said, placing his hand on the document, is the last will and testament of Loretta Patricia Washington, executed June 15th of last year. It was witnessed by myself and my paralegal. It is notarized, filed, and ironclad. He looked at me, his expression grave. The document your sister-in-law presented? The one found in the drawer? Yes. A forgery, he said simply. Or, at best, an old draft that Loretta had explicitly revoked, though I suspect from your description that it was altered. But it does not matter. This is the legal will. He opened the document and began to read. The words washed over me like a tide. I, Loretta Washington, being of sound mind, do hereby bequeath. The house was mine, not Jamal's. Mine. The savings account, totaling nearly $500,000, was mine. Jamal and Tasha were left $25,000 each, with a specific no contest clause. If they challenged the will, they would receive nothing. Malik was left a trust fund of $100,000, accessible only when he turned 25. There is more, Harold said. He plugged the USB drive into his laptop and turned the screen toward me. Loretta insisted on this. She said she wanted to speak to them, and to you one last time. The video player opened, and there was Loretta. She was sitting in her wheelchair, wearing her favorite blue cardigan, the one I had knitted for her. She looked frail, her skin like parchment, but her eyes were sharp, blazing with a fierce intelligence. To whom it may concern, she began, her voice stronger than I remembered it being in those last months. I am making this video to ensure my wishes are not twisted. She looked directly into the camera lens, and it felt as if she were looking right into my soul. My son Jamal and my daughter Tasha have not been my family for a long time. They are my blood, yes, and I love them, but they are not my family. She paused, taking a breath that rattled in her chest. Aisha has been my hands, my feet, and my heart for 10 years. She gave up her life to sustain mine. Jamal, she said, addressing her son directly, you will watch this and think you have been wronged. You will think you deserve my house because you carry my name. But you did not carry me to the bathroom when I could not walk. You did not clean me when I was ashamed of my own body. Aisha did. Aisha earned every brick of that house, every dollar in the bank. She is the daughter I wish I had raised. Tears streamed down my face hot and fast. If you try to take this from her, Loretta continued, her voice hardening. If you try to cheat her, know that I see you. And know that if you fight this will, you will lose everything. That is my final word. The screen went black. I sat in silence for a long time, the sound of Loretta's voice echoing in my ears. What happens now? I asked, wiping my face with a tissue Harold offered. Now, Harold said, closing the laptop, we file for probate. And we notify Mr. Washington and Ms. Washington that they are currently trespassing on your property. Trespassing. The house is yours, Aisha. Effective immediately upon the filing of this will. And regarding the fake will they presented, that is a matter for the police, if you choose to pursue it. Police. Forgery of a legal document is a felony, Harold said. Attempted fraud is a felony. If they knowingly presented a fake will to disinherit you, they have committed a crime. I thought of Jamal's face as he kicked me out. I thought of Tasha's sunglasses and her cold smirk. I thought of the 48 hours they gave me. File the will, I said, my voice steady, and call the police. The next 3 days were a blur of legal motions and police statements. I stayed at the motel, refusing to go near the house until it was done. I gave my statement to a detective, a sharp woman named Detective Freeman, who listened to my story with a grim expression. She was particularly interested in the timeline, the fact that Tasha had found the will so conveniently, and the fact that they had tried to force me out so quickly. They wanted you gone before you could ask questions, she said. They wanted to sell the house and split the cash before the probate court could even look at the paperwork. On the 4th day, Harold called me. It is done, he said. The police are executing a search warrant at the house. They are looking for the original of the forged document. You can go home, Aisha. It is your house. I drove back to the house, my heart hammering against my ribs. There were 2 police cruisers in the driveway, their lights flashing blue and red against the gray afternoon sky. I parked across the street and watched. The front door opened and Jamal came out. He was not wearing his suit today. He was wearing a t-shirt and jeans, and his hands were cuffed behind his back. An officer was guiding him by the elbow, his head bowed low. Tasha followed him, looking disheveled, her sunglasses gone, her face pale and blotchy from crying. They were put into the back of separate cars. I watched the man I had married for 23 years be taken away in a police car from the house he had tried to steal. I felt no joy. I felt no triumph. I only felt a deep, profound sadness that it had come to this, that greed had eaten them so thoroughly that they had destroyed their own lives. When the police cars left, I walked up the driveway. The front door was open. I stepped inside. The house was quiet. The smell of Jamal's cologne was still faint in the air, but beneath it, I could smell the lavender that Loretta loved. I walked into the living room. Malik was sitting on the sofa, his head in his hands. He had not been arrested. He looked up when I entered, his eyes red and swollen. "Mom," he choked out. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." I looked at him, searching his face for the truth. He was weak, yes. He was easily led by his father. But was he a criminal? "You watched them throw me out," I said softly. "You sat there and said nothing." "I was scared," he wept. "Dad said. He said you were going to take everything and leave us. He said Grandma wanted him to have the house. I believed him." I sat down next to him, but I did not hug him. "Not yet. Your father lied to you. I said. And you chose to believe the lie because it was easier than facing the truth. You chose comfort over character, Malik. He sobbed harder. I am so sorry. Please, Mom. I am so sorry. Your grandmother left you money, I told him. $100,000. In a trust. He looked up shocked. She did. She loved you, I said. Even when you didn't visit. Even when you forgot her birthday. She loved you. But she knew you weren't ready for that money. And looking at you now, I see she was right. Jamal and Tasha were charged with forgery, fraud, and elder abuse. The investigation revealed that they had drafted the fake will on Tasha's laptop 3 days after Loretta died, backdating it to a year prior. They had traced Loretta's signature from an old birthday card. It was sloppy, desperate, and cruel. Faced with the video evidence and the metadata from the laptop, they took a plea deal. Jamal got 18 months in prison. Tasha got a year. I did not go to the sentencing. I did not visit Jamal in prison. I filed for divorce the week after his arrest. It was a strange thing, ending a marriage of 23 years with a signature on a piece of paper, but the marriage had really ended years ago, on the day he decided that his mother was a burden, and I was the beast of burden who would carry it for him. I stayed in the house. Some people asked me why I didn't sell it. Why I wanted to live in a place with so many painful memories. But they didn't understand. The memories weren't all painful. The house was where I had bonded with Loretta. It was where we had watched old movies together when she couldn't sleep. It was where she had told me stories about her youth, about the war, about her own mistakes. It was where I had learned that I was stronger than I thought. I redecorated. I painted the walls a soft yellow, the color of sunshine. I turned Jamal's study into a reading room for myself. And I started a project. I used a portion of the inheritance to start Loretta's House, a non-profit support network for family caregivers. I knew there were thousands of women like me out there, drowning in the silence of their own homes, caring for loved ones with no help, no money, and no recognition. I wanted to give them a place to go, a place to be seen. Malik moved into an apartment in the city. He got a job. He started therapy. We saw each other on Sundays. It was awkward at first, the silence between us filled with the ghosts of what he had done, what he had failed to do. But slowly, we began to rebuild. He volunteered at Loretta's house on weekends, making coffee, setting up chairs, listening to the stories of the women who came there. I watched him change. I watched him grow up, finally. I watched him learn that love is not a feeling, but an action. It is showing up when it is hard. It is staying when you want to run. One afternoon in late spring, a year after the funeral, Malik and I were in the backyard. We were planting roses, Loretta's favorite flower. The earth was warm and rich, smelling of life and potential. Mom, Malik said, patting the soil down around a root ball. Do you think she knew? Knew what? That Dad would do that? That they would try to cheat you? I sat back on my heels, wiping a smudge of dirt from my forehead. She knew their character, I said. She knew that grief makes people do strange things, but greed makes them do evil things. She hoped for the best, Malik, but she prepared for the worst. That is what wisdom is. I miss her, he said quietly. I wish I had been better to her. You can't change the past, I told him. You can only change who you are now. You are honoring her by being here, by helping me, by becoming a man she would be proud of. He looked at me, and for the first time in a long time his eyes were clear, free of the shame that had clouded them for so long. Thank you, he said. For what? For not giving up on me. You could have cut me out too. I deserved it. You are my son, I said. Mothers don't give up. We just wait. I often think about that day in the rain, standing on the porch with my funeral shoes in my hand. It feels like a lifetime ago. I am a different woman now.